Feels so good to be back here, dude. Been a minute. Oh shit. Oh, fuck it. Whatever. You don't know exactly which one, so that's actually a different one. Laura's sneak peeking. She doesn't know what we're talking about. So, okay. Hi guys. We're back at it. We're gonna approach things a little bit differently this time. So I'm going to tell Laura a story about a true crime story. It's the story of murder. It's a really bizarre story, and I know she hasn't heard of it. So let us begin. Are you ready? So we're going back to the year. It's July. Let's set the stage. It's July. It's 1882. Okay, and it's we're like 20 years after the Civil War at this point. I don't know what's going on in Wisconsin in the 1880s. I think we're just beginning to develop. We're only like 30 years into our statesmanship. Like, so there's a small city, and I think it went by. What was it called? Yeah, Akin. I've never heard of it until this. So this takes place in Richland County, 1882. It's a small-knit community. Everybody knows each other, and everybody is into everybody's business. You know, that classic, like, Mayberry style kind of shit, right? Well, there's a lady by the name of Mrs. Coleman. Now, Mrs. Coleman had previously been married, but she divorced, and she kept the last name, so she's still Mrs. Coleman. She's found dead, but it's like really messed up. What they say happened to her is it gets fucked up. So Mrs. Coleman lives on a really small farm, and she lives with her older son who's like about 30, and his name is Martin. I think Coleman as well. They live alone. They're living the life. It's a beautiful, simple life, right? And back in the day, it's not like today where we could just jump in the car, run to the grocery store. Like, there had to be a plan in place to go to the store back then. It was like maybe like a couple hours trip just to walk into town, gather supplies, walk back, you know, and deliver things. So this morning, it's July 19th, 1882, and Mrs. Coleman asks her son Martin if he could go down to the store, you know, and get groceries, because they were in desperate need of some groceries. And he tells his mom that at first he was like, I don't think I can. He's like, I don't want to miss out on a day of work, because work is important. It's crucial, you know, it's vital, it's essential to live. So he tells her that he won't go because he's got to start his work in the field. And she says, like, that's fine, I'll go start the work in the field. You run down to the grocery store and get the groceries. Apparently this just didn't work out for him, and he was like, nah, I'll go after my lunch or whatever, I'll go after my break. So he heads out to the farm to start his work, and he begins tilling the fields and doing all this, and he is seen by people. That's another thing, he is witnessed by other individuals that he's working on the farm at that point. He comes back home on his lunch, presumably, after eating lunch with another individual, so there's another person that has seen him. He's having his lunch, and he comes back home, and the whole house is locked up. So it's locked up from the inside. He said he has to pull out like a little pin or something that held the door to lock it from the outside, meaning that, like, did she pin it up and walk away, like lock the house up? What happened there, you know? So that's how he claims to have found the scene. And he went upstairs to go find the money from his pants, because he was going to go to the grocery store at this point for his mom. He goes to look through his pants because he left the money in there, and he doesn't find it. At this point, he doesn't think it's odd, and he doesn't think it's too odd that his mother's not home either. He just assumes that maybe she's distracted with something or someone else. Maybe his uncle. Because also, like I said, it's a tight-knit community. I know that's jump scare.
His uncle.
Yeah, right? You know, that's what this whole case is weird. He thought maybe she went with his uncle. Like I said, it's a tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. So, I mean, she could be anywhere, I guess, but it didn't seem odd to him. So he doesn't think anything of it. He goes back to work and doesn't come back until the end of the day, and it's already nighttime at this point. Well, he gets in the house, and he's looking for dinner, because usually, you know, back in the day, Mom made dinner. It was consistent. Every day it was the same routine, you know? Yeah, she was cooking breakfast, lunch, dinner. You know the vibe. Yeah. It's still today, yep. So he thinks it's a little odd now that she's not returning home, but he still isn't alarmed, because maybe she's busy doing something, you know? Like I said, traveling back in the day, that took a lot of effort. It took a lot of time. It was very time consuming, and, you know, but it was strange, though, why would she not mention that she'd be leaving for the night? You know, I mean, why wouldn't she? But again, he's not alarmed. Nobody in the neighborhood has seen her. Now he begins to get a little on edge about it, but it's whatever. The next day comes, she's still not home in the morning, but he goes to work assuming that he's going to see his mom when he gets home. So he's hitting the fields and he's tilling away and working away, and nope, he's not. He's not going to find her home. She's gone. An entire day has passed and he's still not, he's not alarmed by this just yet. When he comes back for his lunch and he sees that she's not there, now he begins to kind of panic, and he begins asking everybody around town, like, hey, have you seen my mom? Have you seen my mom? Nobody has seen her or heard anything of her. It's almost been like 2 days at this point. So they discover, like, upon entry, they look into the house and they see that there's laundry soaking in a bathtub. And you're like, that too, it's kind of odd. Like, why? She must have planned to come back. That to me says that she wasn't going to stay out long. She had plans to return, soon.
Keep up with the housework. Yeah,
exactly. And that was important back then, I mean, at this point, Martin and his uncle by the way, his name was Uncle Hernan, not Herman, Hernan. Uncle Hernan. Uncle Hernan and Martin and all their neighbors, they're all going around looking for her, and they're starting to like wonder, did she take off? Maybe she just got up and left, I don't know.
She had a mental breakdown.
Something, she got sick of making dinner.
Mom.
Yes, exactly. She got sick of it. But they're looking through the house and they're not seeing anything. She didn't take nothing. She took nothing with her. There's nothing to indicate that she had packed a bag or collected her belongings to depart at all, whatsoever. And it isn't until, I think like another couple of days later, I mean, they are scouring to and fro. They are searching every field, every nook, every cranny. And I thought this was weird. A farm down the road, I think it was like about maybe 3 miles from them, the young boy of that farm tells them there was a tree that had fallen down and it left a gaping hole. But he specifically tells them, like, hey, did you check in the tree hole? And lo and behold, that's where they find her mutilated corpse. There lies Mrs. Coleman in the hole of this tree. But now, suspicions are falling on Martin. The entire city thinks that Martin is responsible. So this is how her body was described. I'm going to read from the paper here. So it says, the boy telling them to go to Gorman's Field, which is where this overturned tree sits. Why would the boy know? Like, why would he specifically say? I mean, I get it. You're thinking like, oh, this is a notorious little spot. It's a big gaping hole. But to be so specific, like, hey, did you check in that very specific spot where there definitely is a corpse? I just thought that was odd. This put them on the true scent, and under the guidance of the youth, the hole was sought for and found. A hole evidently made by an upturned tree, and some logs from therein were discovered to have traces of blood on them, as were also pieces of rocks. After a prolonged search in every direction, a trail was struck and followed up, and the mutilated form of the murdered woman was found at the head of the ravine. She was covered with rocks and rotten logs, so it was nearly hidden from sight. It said the head was bruised and cut as if with some sharp instrument. The clothing was torn. Quite a number of wounds were found on one arm and on the head. The body was carefully removed to the house of her brother, Mr. Hernan, and the coroner summoned and a jury impaneled before Squire Puckett of Excelsior. Everything is circumstantial, okay? Now you gotta remember, Martin had been seen. There were witnesses to conclude that he was in the places that he said he was. Yeah. But again, because he didn't quickly report this, they're getting a little sus, and so they're starting to a little vigilante justice squad is starting to form, and they want justice, and so they're gonna gun for Mr. Martin, and he knows this. He takes off. He's gone. So it says like at this point they're discovering all this stuff, like they're putting it all together, like the clothes were soaking. They pulled the clothes out of the tub, and they're men's clothes, and they thought that there were maybe blood splatters on them. Yeah, but they were Martin's clothes. And it said these garments were secured and were dried, and upon submitted to chemical analysis, the marks, what was supposed to have been blood, was found upon them. But again, that's not for sure. I mean, they're just speculating. Like, he worked on a farm.
Yeah,
you butcher animals all the time. he's snatched up, he's taken into custody, he's brought in front of the court, and they were like, well, this shit is circumstantial as hell, so we can't charge him because we don't have anything that concretely points to him, you know, and that was kind of the end of it. He ended up being released, but he takes off from the country and he's never seen again. They never seen Martin ever again. He's gone. He's left the face of the earth. So that leaves a whole bunch of questions, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
who was responsible?
A ton of questions.
And where she was murdered, they don't know because the house is spotless. This would mean that somebody had to lure Mrs. Coleman away from the house, bring her to this spot where this tree was, because that's where they find the rocks with the blood, which I'm assuming must have... And then if there was a knife, they never found anything else. And also, if Martin did it, why would he leave his blood-stained clothes soaking in a tub? You would think he would have been a little bit smarter. He had all that time to sit on stuff. You know what I mean? It's just kind of weird.
Like, got rid of that, burned it.
Exactly. And I mean, what would be the motive to want to kill an elderly old lady either? Who else would have had motives, you know? So what do you think? What do you think?
Oh, wow, that is crazy.
It is weird, right?
Do they know who did it for real?
No, they don't. That's what's so... And that's the thing, too, is that our only suspect was Martin. And it's just, I'm not convinced, you know?
I don't think it was.
I just think it's so... I feel like
I really don't.
they wanted to escape... You know, they used to do that all the time back in the day. Scapegoat it. Yeah, so... But yeah, that was the story of the murder of Mrs. Coleman.
I think it was her brother. How come the little boy knew?
That too! That was another thing. See, that's why I thought this case was so bizarre. I thought you might like it because there was just so many weird factors that played into it. You know, you got this...
Did he witness it, maybe? Like
no, right?
Her?
Yeah, what if he did?
Him?
That wraps up our cases for today. Our first episode in our vintage true crime series. I mean, we always kind of did our vintage true crime, but we're just
a little different. I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I know. I like doing that. I like telling you about it because I was getting all excited, like, oh, she don't know what's coming next. But I feel like she figures it out because she's smarter than she ever lets on. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Our next one's going to be a fun little... We're definitely going in. We're going Clue style next time. It's a big whodunit and that they still don't know today. So again, we're going to put your savvy, and get your Sherlock cap on. I'll bring the pipe. Good times, man. But yeah, thank you guys so much again for joining us, and I'm just excited to see you in the next one. Peace. I forgot yours was done. Yes.